Bernie Sanders is introducing his Medicare-For-All plan, a single-payer plan, which of course many are describing as ambitious, but it's exactly what the country needs, considering some of the criticisms that the Affordable Care Act is facing and the unpopular programs that were proposed by Republicans. Now, just to give you a few details about this plan, it's similar to what Bernie Sanders was campaigning on. It's a little different, so let me tell you how. The proposal, which Sanders is calling a Medicare-For-All Act of 2017, looks a lot like the plan Sanders touted as a presidential candidate. As the name implies, it envisions giving everybody living in the United States, including undocumented immigrants, an enhanced version of Medicare with virtually no out-of-pocket spending, as well as dental, vision, and hearing aid coverage. Now, here is how his proposal is a little different from what he proposed when he was running for office. In the new bill, Sanders calls for a 4-year transition period during which the newly improved Medicare would first insure all children and adults 55 or older, then expand gradually to cover all adults. Now, he hasn't specified exactly how the country would pay for this program. He has laid out a few suggestions, including a 4% increase in federal taxes for US households. And I think that's reasonable considering how much US households would save in healthcare costs. Now, of course, there are some Democrats who are on board. However, there are some Democrats who are not on board. And before I give you those names, I want to open it up to the panel. Ron, Jimmy, what are your thoughts?
Well, if it's first of all, there's all these people signing on to the bill, which I'm skeptical of because they all want to run for president. And to me, it's like a head fake to the progressive base. And it's good to see it happening, but I think it's like they've gotten the okay from their donors. You can sign on to a bill that we know will never pass. But as soon as that becomes close to passing, they're gonna find problems with it and things are wrong. Maybe I'm a cynic at this point. I've been watching the Democrats for so long now. So that's what I think Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, I think this is a big head fake. And I think they got the okay from their donors. That's what I think.
I'm trying to say that I'm cautiously optimistic. I have my, I share those concerns. I think a lot of folks do. But the other side of it is the fact that even if this is a political football, the fact that they're playing it is saying that they're finally in touch with the fact that most of the country wants this now. About 60% of adults want single-payer healthcare, and that's only going to grow. That's only going to keep up because people are finally seeing through the propaganda. And you see Bernie Sanders going into rural places, and you see these people cheering the idea of everybody having healthcare. That wasn't happening 10 years ago, but it's happening now. So.
Right, and I think it's because enough Americans have gone bankrupt due to healthcare costs, and enough Americans are frustrated about the fact that they pay way more for pharmaceutical drugs than other countries. So yeah, I think a lot of Bernie Sanders' popularity had to do with the fact that he actually did touch on the economic issues, including healthcare, that Americans were frustrated with, while other candidates refused to do so. But the one thing that I do want to touch on quickly, Jimmy, is all of a sudden we are seeing some Democrats on board co-sponsoring this legislation, and these are Democrats that historically were not on board for things that would benefit the American people, like lowering the cost of pharmaceutical drugs. So Cory Booker would be an example of that. He is co-sponsoring this legislation along with Elizabeth Warren and other Democrats. And remember, earlier this year, he voted against the reimportation of pharmaceutical drugs. Essentially, that would make pharmaceutical drugs much cheaper for Americans. And so Nomiki Konst, who is one of our, who works with us, managed to ask him about that. And here's what his answer was.
How are you going to balance the pharmaceutical industry in your state with the provisions for Medicare-For-All?
Well, I think there's a lot of givens right now. And the biggest given is just any objective person could think to themselves, why is the exact same drug so much more expensive in this country than a few hundred miles north in Canada? And a lot of that has to do is that we don't have the power to negotiate down costs. It has to do with all the middle men and women that are profiteering off of this broken system we have. One of the biggest culprits was mentioned today, the PBMs. So having a system like this that can use the collective bargaining power that comes from having Medicare for all, as well as beginning to expose a lot of the other ways that these prices are driven up is going to help us drive it down. And by the way, this has to be just one component of a larger effort to drive down the costs of healthcare. All the areas in which there's profiteering going on. Why, when you look at your healthcare bills, you see aspirin sometimes costing, $4 a pill or something outrageous like that. So we have a lot of work to do to drive down healthcare costs. This is a very important step in the right direction.
So he's talking the talk.
Yes, he's talking the talk.
He is definitely talking the talk, and he again is co-sponsoring this proposal along with Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. And look, I don't blame you for being skeptical and a cynic, because we have seen, some Democrats, a lot of Democrats, refuse to represent the best interests of the American people or even their base because of the way that they're being funded, right? And so pharmaceutical companies helped fund Cory Booker's campaigns for a while until he got the criticism for voting against the reimportation legislation, and then he decided to stop taking money from pharmaceutical companies.
He took a pause.
He took a pause.
He didn't stop.
To be fair, he didn't stop. He took a pause. But that's some action. Like, I don't want to be, I'm also skeptical, believe me, I'm also skeptical. But I also believe that we as voters and we as outspoken progressives have more power than we realize. And we've been criticizing establishment Democrats very aggressively since this last election. And I think that it could work if we continue to hold their feet to the fire, right? So if he starts changing the lingo, moving forward, if he sees, oh wow, this actually could work and my donors aren't gonna like that, well then we continue holding his feet to the fire. That's what I think our game plan should be.
I certainly see that, and of course we don't want to create a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario where it's like, oh, you're saying, well, we don't believe you. But I mean, Cory Booker in this particular case, yeah, you do have to proceed with caution. I mean, this is a guy, after he casted that vote against the drug pricing bill, he took a lot of flack from it. This is not his first political football. His first one was when he came out for a better drug policy, where he wanted to get pot legalized. Like, hey guys, I'm cool with pot. Are we okay now? Are we cool, progressives? Look at my pink scarf. You got to proceed with caution with him. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the reason why I think I'm skeptical, bordering on cynical, is because I live in California, and the Democratic Party has a supermajority in California, and all the California Democrats run on single payer. Anthony Rendon says he's for single payer, and he's the Speaker of the House. And in California, turns out we ain't getting it. So that's why I'm skeptical. So even when the Democrats have a supermajority in a state like California, which is the bluest state I think in the nation, and they all say they're for single payer, they find a way to undermine it. Anthony Rendon's found a way to undermine it. So they're not, and Anthony Rendon, what I say is, he says he's been for single payer since before Obamacare. And you've been for single payer since before Obamacare, and you still don't have a plan that you came up with, that you introduced, because you're the goddamn speaker. You're the leader of the Democrats, and you don't have a plan? You're saying the plan they presented to you is flawed? Where's your plan? You've been thinking about this for 10 years. You're the leader and you don't have a plan? I smell bullshit.
And that's what I think is the next wave of this feel of a voting bloc. This younger voting bloc will continue to pay attention. They're used to this, the old way of going, where they'll say it and everyone kind of forgets, because then, oh, it's football season and no one's gonna be talking about it because their fantasy team is winning right now. So they can fly under the radar. Or they'll go, oh, Trump keeps doing crazy things. This will fly under the radar for me not to follow through. We will remember, it's a new age of getting more information. We don't have to watch cable news and read newspapers anymore. You can get it from anywhere you want, and you get it quicker, and people can actually respond. So I think they're gonna have to answer for more than what they used to have to.
So we'll see. Now they're gonna have to go sell this to the country. I mean, Bernie Sanders and all the co-sponsors. So, one thing that also makes me skeptical is I saw the body language of, like, say, Kamala Harris when she announced that she was for Medicare-For-All. It was like she was almost apologizing. She's like, well, I'm gonna be co-sponsoring. She was like, if you're for something that you're gonna have to fight for, you have to come out for it. You have to say, that's why we need Medicare-For-All, and that's why she didn't say it like that. She said it like, this will be a surprise to my staff. Why is this a surprise to your staff? Your staff doesn't know where you stand on the most important progressive issue of our day? You're gonna let us know? So that's why. So I'm not trying, again, it's good that this is happening. This is only happening because we put pressure on them, Anna. This is only happening because people did not let up and people didn't fall in line. That's why this is happening. And then you're right, we have to keep the pressure on. So what really matters is how they vote. Cory Booker knows exactly what to say. He knows how to pay fealty to progressives. He knows how to talk like a populist, but then he voted against the reimportation of the drugs from Canada. So we have to watch how they vote.
Now, just very quickly, I do want to list off the Democratic senators who are on board with this. Let's go to graphic 5B, please. So as we mentioned, Cory Booker has signed on to it. There's also Kristen Gillibrand from New York, Kamala Harris from California, Elizabeth Warren, Patrick Leahy, Sheldon Whitehouse, Al Franken, Jeff Merkley, Ed Markey, Martin Heinrich, Tom Udall, Brian Schatz, Mazie Hirono, also Richard Blumenthal, Jeanne Shaheen and Tammy Baldwin. So we do have some Democrats on board. That's the good news. And again, let's hold their feet to the fire.
Help us build independent media. Become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.